I've never felt disrespected by men in Eastern Europe. I only felt disrespected by men in the States. Either hit on you in a very, very dirty, disgusting, manipulative way. In Russia, never. If a guy would hit on me, I still can do business with him. Tell him like straight on, I'm sorry, I'm not interested, but I want to do business with you, and they would respect that. And also, if you tell a Russian man no, he's not going to get offended and he's not going to try to hurt you. Because Russian men, they used to hear no all the time. And here is a man terrified of hearing no. And if God forbids, they get rejected. It's weird.
I'm so fucking sick of American culture war shit crossing the Atlantic and infecting the UK. You know, and I'm not just talking about the concepts, I'm talking about pressure groups, American pressure groups, who are funding shit in the US and now shit in the UK. We've seen it on the attacks on trans rights, we're seeing it on the attacks on reproductive healthcare rights, yeah? Their push to try and drive down the abortion term limits, and now we're seeing it on book bans. So I've just written an article on Substack that's about like de-escalation of American book bans and why we all need to be worried about it. And when I was doing the research for that, I came across this Guardian article that was published April this year that was saying there was an index on censorship survey that was done last year in which over half of the librarians they talked to had been asked to remove books from library shelves, many of which were LGBTQ plus titles. And this is the bit that really worries me. In more than half of those cases, the books were taken off the shelves. They complied. And all of this is apparently funded by the same people that are pushing for book bans in the US. And it makes me sick to my stomach. We know this is happening. We know where this is going. And yet we somehow seem powerless to stop it. Honestly, I'm losing my mind.
People that are not from the United States or haven't been to the United States, it might seem weird to hear this, but the USA is not really one country. It's basically 50 countries all pretending to be one country. Every state has its own politics. They have their own government, they have their own taxes, they have their own driver's license, and they have their own laws, which vary wildly state to state. For example, I'm in Indiana, and in Indiana, there is a plant that is used for medicinal and recreational purposes that is criminalized here. You absolutely cannot have it. Not legal recreationally, not legal medicinally. This weekend, I was in Ohio at a birthday party, and I went into somebody's backyard, and in their backyard, they had a 4-foot tall plant of this variety. Not just one, actually. There was 10 of them. Totally legal. Absolutely no problem. On the way back to Indiana from Ohio, right at the border, I noticed a bunch of police officers that I don't normally see. Come to find out, a lot of them are now sitting at the border waiting to pull people over with Indiana license plates coming back from Ohio to make sure they don't bring this plant in. We live in the same country, though. Except we don't, because it's not really the same. So in my opinion, the United States is kind of like the EU, a little bit. Not really, but kind of. It's definitely not one cohesive country, because nothing ever works out very easily here because the states are so different.
I never thought I'd see the day where $100,000 isn't enough in this economy. That's what the news reported. That the average lower class American, they're considered lower class now if you make $100,000 a year. So if you make $100,000 a year or less, you're considered lower class. And the average person making $100,000 does not qualify to buy a home. And they possibly qualify to get on government assistance because it's just not enough in this economy. When did the American dollar start to go down? Because it's happening. The value of the American dollar has gone down substantially, and that's why the goalpost is being pushed, because as we're meeting these goals that was set, the standards that were set by our parents to get a job, go to college, we're meeting these goals, and it's still not enough. I legit make more now than I ever have, and I'm struggling. Literally. Some days I still have to get out there and DoorDash, Walmart deliver, just to make ends meet. And this is a two income household. So tell me when this happened. Like when at one point $100,000, like that was more than enough in a year to survive, to go on vacation, to live comfortably. That's what I want to know. When did this become the new norm? where $100,000 is considered low income, where it's considered not even middle class. I don't even think middle class even exists anymore.
So I think we can all agree at this point that the U.S. is in serious decline. I've talked about it from the standpoint of education. I've talked about it from the standpoint of economy. You could talk about it from the standpoint of just about any way that we meet people's needs in this country. People are not getting their needs met. It's hard to say when this decline started. I think you could say that it even started in the 1970s, but I think it became apparent in 2016 when we democratically elected a right-wing demagogue, which is what countries in decline do. And I've been pretty clear since about last summer or so that my continuing to stay in this country is a choice to go through a very difficult time in history. And I also understand that the choice to stay is itself very privileged. And I guess I'm making this video partly as a caution and partly as a call to action. As a country declines, there is this pattern of insane concentration of wealth, and those who own the wealth start to engage in a lot of corruption in order to keep the wealth going. And where there once was order and maybe some facade that there was not that much corruption, that is all gone, and the people who are in the middle and the upper middle economically start to get swallowed up by the wealth inequality. And the typical reaction of people who are supposed to have privilege in the society is that they will fight very hard to maintain that position. And so my caution is to let you know that we are not at that place in history where we elect a different representative. We're at that part of history where we rewrite the way that government works, the way that education works, the way that economy works. It's a much bigger change. We're waiting and holding on while this current thing crumbles. We're not building anything. And for those of us who are more privileged, it is time for us to let go of our privilege and some belief that we are supposed to have more money than the people who are marginalized in our society. One of the ways that marketing gets at us is that it throws the wealth inequality in our face and tells us that we need to pretend that we have more money than we have. And most people are just going around pretending that they are in okay financial shape.
Hello everyone, it's Anthony. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today we are discussing about life in Europe versus in United States. So tell me your thoughts in the comment section. And when generally I talk about Europe, I talk about how many states are in Europe. Are they 52 states or what? Because there is the European Union and Europe. There is so much difference. European Union and Europe. So European Union is what maybe most Americans think is Europe. No, man. Turkey is in Europe. Armenia, Georgia is in Europe too, I believe so. Yeah, Georgia in Europe? Tell me in the comment section, is Georgia in Europe? Ukraine too is in Europe, but Ukraine is not in the European Union, if I believe so. It's not in the European Union. Russia is in Europe. So tell me your thoughts in the comment section.
I just had a patient tell me that him and his wife got quoted $30,000 to go through IVF treatment here in the United States. So instead, they are flying to Spain, staying for 2 weeks, making it a vacation, and doing IVF, all for $15,000. And keep in mind, he has insurance here in the United States, so that was with his insurance. And there, they don't have insurance. This is just out of pocket. So the out-of-pocket cost there, altogether, the trip, everything, $15,000. Make that make sense. Like, why? How? What is going on here? Healthcare just shouldn't be this inaccessible and inexpensive, especially, and keep in mind, he has insurance.
Since I have some European ears right now, it seems like, let me explain one thing to you, which you know America is divided, right? I mean, we are not a monolith. And I am from the part of America that is, well, more educated and better informed when it comes to these things. I'm a first-generation American. My parents were born in Europe, and they came over during the Second World War, so I am well acquainted. I I speak a different language. I've spent 10 years in a European country. So I am not the same as these people who live in these, little villages in Indiana. These people, you have to understand, are the same people as a Russian peasant sitting in, awful, awful Siberia in a village with nothing around them. And all they have is a big poster of Putin on the wall. That's their Trump. I come from a family of Stanford PhDs. These people have third grade reading levels. You have to understand the lack of any kind of good education. All they have is Bible study between hits of meth. I've been in cohesive European cultures. Even though there's some differences, there's a cohesion. There is no cohesion here between what is happening in these red states and what is happening in the blue states. These people have been targeted by Russia, they've been targeted by the church and by Republicans, and then they are so brainwashed. This is Putin's plan too. What you do is keep the population so dumb, and you keep them so poor and desperate that they just want your face on that wall. Like I said, I will take any economic hit. Even the domestic things that they're doing, they're cutting the SNAP programs and the Medicaid. Do you think I use those programs? No, I don't use those programs. Do you know who does use those programs? The stupids who voted for Trump. I know a lot of people are gonna get hurt. I know people that are innocent are gonna get hurt, but nothing less than total economic collapse is going to get these imbeciles, these people out of office. And if you think that Americans are all America, fuck yeah, no, we're not. I haven't been like that for a long time. It did well for my family. My family worked themselves up when you could work yourself up here. You can't do that anymore. You can only lie, steal, and take from everybody else. I care deeply about what Europeans think. I care deeply. And whatever is said, I take to heart. The people in the red states do not care. They do not even know where you are on the map. And I am sorry, but that is the fact. And they're not going to care how much you say bad things to me as an American. I care in the sense that I'm on the side of history, I hope, that will be the right one.
Okay, this whole 100 Brits versus 100 Americans, you are smooth, no groove in the brain if you think you're going to beat American.
I'm sorry, but there's no way in God's green earth that 100 of the British could ever beat 100 Americans in hand-to-hand combat. Mentally, Americans are just not okay. There's too much going on here. Imagine a land where everyone is both too comfortable and also extremely alienated at the same time. And also, no one can agree on what color the sky is, and every time a violent shooting occurs, the masses buy more guns. Putting aside the deranged psychological aspect, there are just too many phenotypes to deal with. 100 Americans can't even defeat 100 Americans. The variety is overwhelming. Imagine out of the American 100, 25 are sourced from Florida. It's over with. You don't even have to be selective. Any random person from Florida could wreak havoc on the British Isles. You could go and get a 60-year-old white man in Florida right now. Ain't no telling what he's gonna do or what he's capable of. And God forbid there's a couple of Samoans on the team, the rest of us won't have to fight. There's going to be too much to deal with.
I think something people are not talking about enough when it comes to this 100 Americans versus 100 British is the weather in the U.S. The weather in the U.S. has created a baseline of trauma for the average American that I don't think the British fully appreciate. From my understanding, the weather in the UK is rainy, it's gloomy, it's consistently depressing. Whereas in the US, one of our coasts is constantly bursting into flames on the regular. The other coast is getting hammered by Category 5 hurricanes on the regular. In the middle of our country is Tornado Valley. And people live in these places willingly. This is like if NASA discovered a new hospitable planet and told us, yeah, you could technically live there, but every day you'd experience an act of God against your home. And Americans would be like, yeah, I'd love to retire there. You think this type of person is concerned with the risk of getting stabbed? And don't even get me started on our summers and winters. Our winters in some places go down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. There are people in Minnesota who drive their trucks over frozen lakes with their seatbelts off, just in case their trucks fall through the ice and they have to swim out. My wife grew up in the Bronx where she had to walk to school in 3 feet of snow because schools didn't close in blizzards. It gets so cold and windy in Chicago, you can get windburn. Our air hates us. And right now, bro, I kid you not, in Arizona, there are second graders running barefoot across the asphalt in 100 degrees Fahrenheit for kicks and giggles. There is a spot in the US called Death Valley that quite literally is the hottest place on earth that has hit record temperatures of 134 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 56 degrees Celsius. And Americans go there to run marathons. A heat wave in the UK is 82 degrees Fahrenheit. My father sets the thermostat to 82 degrees. It's different over here, bro. All that to say, we're not even touching the obsession with violence that we have over here. The crackheads, the Florida mans. We're fighting Kryptonian weather systems. We have survived House of Dragon winters. There's nothing you can do to us that our weather has not already done.
Why aren't Americans out in the streets protesting Trump's policies like they do over in Europe? Well, I'll take a shot at answering that. I'm not an expert, but I have opinions on the subject. If you're willing to listen, I'm willing to share. To begin with, I think there's a significant group of Americans who are simply apathetic. They don't care. They're willing to let the next guy handle it. They don't want to stick their necks out. There is yet another group of Americans who are simply so beaten down by the struggle of day-to-day life in this country that they don't have the energy to care. If you're a banker, if you're an attorney, if you're an engineer or an architect, a medical professional, or if you're in one of the specialized trades like electrical or plumbing, you can make a very good life here. But if you're not, there's a good chance you're struggling. And when you come home at night after that second job, all you want to do is collapse on the couch and put your feet up. You don't want to go out marching. I think Americans tend to have a negative perception of protesters, probably stemming from the days of the Vietnam War, when college students were out in the streets clashing violently with police. Americans, despite all the braggadocio and bravado, are a fairly docile bunch of people. They do what they're told. Additionally, there can be negative consequences for protesting in this country. For example, American corporations are incredibly sensitive to how they are perceived in the public eye. If it became known that a group of their employees was out marching in the streets and waving signs, there might be negative consequences. Those employees could face severance. I had a boss one time tell me that he didn't want to see me out marching in gay pride parades. It happens. Additionally, there's the risk of physical harm. It wouldn't surprise me at all to hear that a group of MAGA brown shirts had descended on some protesters and tried to beat them up. And you have to remember that Americans are armed to the teeth. Guns are everywhere. In my state, you can carry a gun in your pocket without a permit or a license. But I think the biggest reason that Americans are not out protesting in the streets about Trump's policies is that they agree with them. I know that sounds incredible, but it's true. This is an aggrieved group of people who do not want the nation sharing its wealth with other countries. They feel like America has been taken advantage of by other countries. They are tired of seeing us give away our money and our resources to other countries. They don't want people from other countries coming over here to take advantage of the benefits and the opportunities that we have. They don't want to share. Back in World War I or World War II, you would have called these people isolationists. They don't want to get involved. They don't care what happens to Ukraine. They don't care what happens to Taiwan. They don't care what happens to Europe. They simply want to keep everything to themselves. In order to understand the American mindset, you have to know something about the way Americans live, because it is dramatically different than the way people in Europe live. In Europe, people read books. They go to museums. They travel. They're exposed to other cultures, other languages, other lifestyles. They're much more cosmopolitan in their perception of how the world exists and how we all get along with each other. Here in the States, it's completely the opposite. If you watched American TV commercials, you would think that we spend our discretionary time out rock climbing or kissing under the stars or roping cattle or doing any number of things that keep us engaged with each other. The fact is, we don't live like that at all. In America, people adore technology, and they have been seduced by media. And by media, I don't mean the news media, I mean the medium itself. Television, movies, the internet, video games. They spend a great deal of their discretionary time consuming media. And the problem with America's fascination with technology and its adoration of media is that it can be very isolating. For instance, in America, you don't have to go to an office building to work anymore. You can work from home. You don't have to go to the grocery store or to the department store to pick up your goods. You can just have them delivered. You don't have to go out to a restaurant to enjoy a meal. Have it delivered to your house. You don't have to go to a movie theater to watch a movie. Just stream it on your computer or your TV. So Americans spend a great deal of time home alone. They are not exposed to a multiplicity of cultures or languages or experiences. They're home alone. And because this technology allows them to do it, they can curate their information sources so that they only hear the information that they want to hear. In other words, their biases are confirmed over and over and over. So in Europe, where you have large groups of people living in close proximity to each other, with a variety of cultures, a variety of languages, and a variety of worldviews, here in the United States, you tend to have people living in silos and echo chambers of confirmation bias. Is it any wonder that Americans live in such extreme conditions? There's no middle ground in this country anymore. You're either extreme left or extreme right. The middle ground has been eliminated by the technology that enables people to be alone all the time. We've basically become a nation of angry sociopaths. And that's why people don't get out and protest, because they agree with Trump is doing. Trump appeals to their confirmation bias. The country is like an open wound, and Trump is quite literally the infection that is exploiting that open wound. So if you were wondering why Americans don't protest, I think that's why.
100 Americans versus 100 Brits. That's a fight I would want to see. I'm not promoting violence amongst us in any way, but it's something I would pay a premium to watch. So has anyone ever traveled outside United States? In whoever is watching my video, has anyone ever traveled outside the United States? Tell me what you think about cultures there, the general life there compared to United States. Maybe the stereotypes of Americans in the outside world. Is it real, or are we living rent-free in their head? Tell me in the comment section. In current situation, most Americans make more money than Europeans. But I see people claiming that United States is materialistic but empty. They claim that in Europe, people make less money, but they have a better quality life than here in the United States. They claim that here it's all about making more money, but we don't understand it's a hamster wheel. This stereotype is mostly from American tourists or foreigners who make dollars here in America, then go to spend them in Europe, in Asia, Southeast Asia, in Africa maybe, South America, where they have lower living standards, or the cost of living in those countries is cheap than in United States. And since they spend less for more, they claim that, oh, life is good here, life is great here. But if you give the option to stay, they will decline. The real flex is having an American paycheck and living the European dream. It's a flex. So tell me your thoughts in the comment section. Is the mixture of socialism and capitalism in Europe working? Or is it the crony capitalism, or maybe pure capitalism of the United States? I would like to hear your thoughts, because of what I've said are my thoughts. What are yours? Am I wrong? Probably not. So until next video, thank you for your attention to this matter.